Hey folks, let me answer some questions about how to use push-ups for healthier shoulders, a nice comfortable neck, and a strong core. Where people have problems with push-ups is they use push-ups as this pushing exercise, as a shoulder and elbow exercise. And what I'm going to challenge you to do today is to use your push-ups actually as a core exercise where you're building tons of stability and tension. And then while you're doing that, you're pressing away from the floor. This trains your body to do something that it's been supposed to do since the beginning of infancy, which is the capacity to stabilize from the inside so that all the things that happen external to that, away from the central frame, is strong and powerful. There are a few things that I want to make sure that you are very clear on, which will help understand the push-up better. One, the shoulder is not just this joint, right? This is one piece of the puzzle. The shoulder complex is 3 bones, one being the humerus that attaches to the scapula, to the shoulder blade right in here. This shoulder blade has no bony attachment to your body. It does not directly connect to your rib cage. It floats on a sea of muscles. Right? What it does anchor to is the 3rd bone, which is your collarbone. And that is right here. Your collarbone and your shoulder blade come together. They attach at the AC joint, and the AC joint attaches to your sternum. So when we talk shoulder girdle, truly the only place the shoulder actually connects to your central skeleton, to your spine, is right here at the sternum. That means that when you go to move your arm, the primary pivot point starts here, not here. So as you do your push-up, think about how your push-up should feel like it's coming from your rib cage, from your torso, and not from your shoulders. Okay, let's walk through all of the different steps. We're going to take it each one step at a time, and by the end of it, you're going to have a much more powerful push-up. I will warn you now that the push-up I'm going to ask you to do will be harder. It will be more tiring. It will demand more from your body. You will not get as many reps in. However, when you master it, you can take the skill that it takes to master my push-up and apply it to the times that you're doing push-ups for reps. You ready? Let's go. So the easiest place to teach this is on hands and knees. As you're on your hands and knees, at any time, shake out your wrists, give your knees a break. If you need a pad for your knees, grab one. If you need something because your wrist can't handle that bent, loaded position, then roll up a mat, or grab some dumbbells, or go on fists. I will tell you over time, this needs to build back so you can tolerate it, but not everybody's wrists like it. So anytime, switch to being on your fist or holding some kind of grippy thing so that your wrist is more neutral. Here we go. So what we're gonna start with is understanding a tabletop spine. A good push-up should have some kind of tabletop spine. The mistake that you see is you see some kind of swaying or arching. So we're going to do exactly that. We're going to do cat and cow together. So when you do cat and cow, the main way people do cat and cow, right? So here's cat and here is cow. Notice that when you do, here is cat, here is cow. Notice that when you do cat, how easy it is to do it from that mid to upper back. See how much I can really just push my upper back up into it? What I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to shake that out for a second. And I want you to do cat, where you actually do cat from your lumbar spine. Really press your lumbar spine up into it. Notice how different that is. Maybe it's a lot more restricted. Maybe you'll actually really feel how hard your belly button has to engage with that process and how much you have to really kind of tuck your butt to make that happen. It might even feel like a nice stretch. Cow, exact same idea in the opposite direction. It is very easy to cow from the low back. The lumbar spine loves to cow, no problem. What I'm going to ask you to do is I want you to find a cow in your upper back. And notice how much harder you have to work to create extension through your upper back to achieve that. It can feel quite muscular, it can feel quite pinchy, and then your low back will not feel the pinchiness that you're used to feeling. So I want you to play with that a couple of times. I want you to move through those positions a few times emphasizing moving parts of your spine that you've really kind of avoided using for a long time. And notice whether or not it gets easier, if your low back starts to get a nice stretch to it. That's nice, right? Now, the other piece to doing your cat and cow. When people do cat, a lot of times they kind of go into this upper neck push. That's not wrong. If you're doing a cat, you're probably gonna do that, and that's fine. What I'm gonna ask you to do now is I want you to play with not shrugging up. So instead of doing your cat where you really push into this kind of overhead press, I want you to keep your shoulders kind of square and focus on the cat being from down here. Notice how you really start to push through your armpits rather than push into your neck. Those are two different sensations. And a lot of times when people have bad push-ups, they end up in this kind of up in their neck sensation. I want you to take those shoulders and get them away from your ears, right? So there's kind of shrugged up and there's pulled away from your ears. Don't turn that into pull your shoulders down. That's not effective either. That's actually could create a lot of other problems. I'm not asking for your shoulders to be pulled away from your ears. I'm asking them to float. So that you have this 90-degree angle from your neck to your shoulder. That's all you gotta do, okay? So play a little bit with shoulder position, and instead of wrenching them down or shrugging them up, I want you to picture that your collarbone is a straight line from shoulder to shoulder. There's a ruler going across. So let's put all of that together. So far, we're going to find a little bit of a cat with a lumbar spine, and we're gonna square the shoulders, right? So that's a nice tabletop spine. I'm not going into the big cat. We're just doing a little bit of find some length in the low back, square the shoulders. The next thing to play with is engaging your armpits. One of the most important muscles that typically falls offline when people have shoulder problems is something called the serratus anterior. The serratus anterior is that really sexy like saw blade muscle right here, right? You'll see these like big muscles that come across. It looks like a serrated knife. That's your serratus anterior. The serratus anterior is one of the muscles that actually keeps your shoulder blades from winging, right? When you see somebody go into their hands and knees and their shoulder blade pops up in the air behind them like angel wings, they have a weakness in the serratus and the rhomboids and some other stuff, but the serratus is the big one. That muscle is engaged when you push past your ribcage. So when you're taking your shoulder blade and bringing it forward. So push-ups are a really wonderful way to train them. So if I take you here and I say sag into cow, right? Take your tailbone towards cat, square your shoulders. Now hold this, and all I want you to do is press away from the floor just enough that you feel your armpits turn on, right? So they're hanging and sagging, and then we're pushing away just enough that you feel your armpits engage. That's your serratus. The other piece of that puzzle is playing with your elbows, right? So you can, right now what I want you to do is we've pushed away from the floor. I want you to take your elbows and spin them forward and notice what sensation that gives you. And then I want you to spin your elbows out and notice what sensation that gives you. Notice what I did, right? As soon as my elbows spun out, my shoulders went up in my ears and my upper traps became engaged. I don't want upper traps, right? That's the one thing that everyone complains about being tight and painful. Let's get out of there. So let's squeeze it all the way in. Now, when you're all the way in, you can feel those armpits squeezing, right? You can feel a little bit of tension in your armpits. When you do that, if you're gonna do a push-up from this position, you're gonna do a tricep push-up. Not wrong, just it's more central on the triceps. It's fine, but sometimes you wanna do push-ups where they're more of a wide push-up. So take your hands a little wide. I want you to spin your elbows in again. Feel that armpit tightness. Keep the armpit tightness and then let your elbows come back out. You might need to play with that a little bit. Master feeling that little, I'm making orange juice, right? Sorry, so that's if you imagine that you're holding an orange under your armpit and you squeeze it, you're gonna make orange juice. I want you to make some orange juice for me, but then let your elbows come back out to where you would want to be doing your push-up, right? And notice that I got lazy and actually sat back, and that is perfectly okay. If you need to practice this right here, perfectly fine, right? For a lot of people, this might be enough. Okay, so let's recap there. So we're in hands and knees, right? We're going to first get used to where our neck should be. Our neck should not be shrugged up. It doesn't need to be pulled way down. Just nice, soft, neutral, no big strain. Thing number 2, we want to create a tabletop spine. The easiest way to do that is to take your upper back into cow, then take your lower back into cat. That very naturally is going to engage your belly button, which means that your core is on. Then you're going to push away from the floor just enough that you feel those armpits engage. You might need to take your hands a little wider than you first did it because you want to do a push-up, right? You're going to spin your elbows until you feel a position that feels good to you. Somewhere where you can feel your armpits engage, but then maybe let your elbows come back out. Now, if you want this to be a push-up, you need to walk your knees back, okay? For many of you, this is going to be the push-up that you do from your knees. For some of you, it will be here, but we're not doing it yet. We are now going to do the part that really is hard, which is a dead start push-up or a hand release push-up. And let me grab a yoga block. Yoga blocks are handy for this because not everyone is ready to be all the way here. If you're going to do your dead start push-up on the ground, this is the end range, which means you're initiating motion from this range. That can be a lot for your range of motion. If you can't comfortably get your hands into this position, full depth is too much. The yoga block has 3 heights to it, right? Easiest, harder, hardest, full, right? So something that you can rest your chest on, okay? If you're using a yoga block, you're probably also going to be on your knees, and that is, again, totally fine. I'm going to talk through this as if you're not on your knees first. So we're going to lay down on our bellies, right? And what I want you to do is do the same shoulder work that we just did, the same spine work that we just did. The spine work here is a little bit weirder, right? So if our hands are going to be placed about slightly wider than shoulder width apart, the elbows are slightly out. Now we need to do all that cat and cow work. Well, how do I do that? Well, you're going to have to kind of lengthen the tailbone down, which means you're going to take your heels and really push them back behind you. You're going to get your quads to fire up. Now that's getting pinchy on my low back. So I'm going to take a second, soften the knees, and actually lift the belly button off the floor, creating that little bit of length in the low back. You're going to curl the toes under, press your heels back, and I have all this tension. Then we do the armpit thing, squeezing orange juice, then lengthening the neck, and now when you push off the floor, you come off in one smooth plank. You're going to kind of squeeze your armpits when you do that. And when you come back down, you're going to aim your chest to hit the ground at the same time as your belly and thighs. That's very different from leading with the chest, or even worse, leading with the belly. Believe it or not, when you let your belly sag, you're actually making yourself heavier. You're actually screwing with the fulcrum and making the push-up harder. So notice that I said a couple of things before we even pushed off the ground. Squeezing your quads, squeezing your butt, squeezing your core, squeezing your armpits. You are generating internal tension. That tension is all in the central line. So by the time you do the push-up, and notice there's a little bit of a squeeze the armpits with that. When you do the push-up, yes, you're under a lot of strain, you're doing a lot of work, but your armpits, your shoulders are actually in these really healthy, stabilized positions, and they can sustain the load. If you're on your knees, the only thing you can't do is get your quads engaged, right? Because your knees are bent. So if you're going to be on your knees doing it, you're still working on coming up in a plank, not in a caterpillar motion, right? So even if I bend the knees, I can lengthen the tailbone, engage the belly button, squeeze the armpits, and come up in one smooth motion. And then when you come back down, you're trying to let your thighs and your chest hit at the same time. Then fully release and do it again, right? The dead start push-up is not the how many push-ups can you do exercise. It is the how much tension can I generate in order to create maximum stability so that when I do the push-up, I can do it safely. I want you to try that. Master the act of coming up in one smooth plank. If that's still really hard, you can get a little of assistance at the hips by putting a band, anchor a band in a rack, and then put it around your hips. Incline push-ups work. It will work the fibers differently. So by the time you're back down to flat again, you haven't really trained those fibers. So I like more of a supported push-up because you're actually training specifically that motion. If you have questions, you know how to reach me. Find me on the Insta or send me an email. Drop a message in the comments, whatever it is that works for you, to let me know that you don't quite get it yet and you need a little bit more help. I hope this helps you. Go be successful out there. Master being able to do at least one push-up, because someday it'll probably save your life when you fall and you can't get up. So master your push-up. You deserve it.